Hey, what is up, everybody? Thanks for joining me today on the Civil Engineering Academy podcast. Appreciate you tuning in and liking and subscribing this stuff and sharing it with your friends. It's always a good time. Today, I'm excited to bring my brother Mark back on, and he occasionally, maybe it's yearly, actually joins a little bit of a conference, I guess, a meeting of the minds. It's put on by Utah Business Magazine. They kind of talk about the state of the AEC industry in Utah, but really I think it's applicable to kind of the nation. So it's always fun to bring him on to talk about what's going on, the happenings in Utah with the AEC industry and how it is applicable to everywhere else in the nation. So let's get right to that interview. And if you need help with your journey to become a professional engineer, make sure to check us out at civilengineeringacademy.com. We got exams, we got a CBT exam simulator, we got courses, all to help you out get there. So, and if you have any questions about that, shoot me an email. So without further ado, let me get to my interview with Mark. It's coming up right after this. All right, Mark, what is up?
Hey, it's good to be here again. I'm a recurring guest. Glad you keep bringing me back.
Yes, indeed.
It's always fun.
Well, we like bringing you on because you got all the insiders.
I have a few insights, but I don't know everything yet.
Awesome.
But
well, I know we've done this in the past, so if people are curious, you can go check out past episodes where we've talked about this. But you get to go on a, I don't know, what is it, a business?
It's a Utah Business Magazine Roundtable. So it's Utah Business Magazine's effort to get all of the industry leaders of the AEC industry together. And it's not all of the industry leaders, but it's a good chunk of them, and discuss the state of the economy and markets and just kind of how design is going and how construction is going, and just kind of get everybody's feel for how things in the AEC industry are progressing and how things are going.
What overall was your impression of the event? Was there anything that stood out to you?
Well, one of the big things that stood out was that, in years past, recent years past, I participated. This was probably my 6th year participating. And, when I first started, there was a lot of optimism. I would say a lot more than there is now as far as the health of the economy. It's kind of weird because there's been kind of a divergence in the market. So the publicly funded sectors of the construction industry are moving along. The highways are getting funded. There seems to be a lot of federal funding behind those larger infrastructure type projects right now. But it's the privately funded stuff that's struggling. Higher interest rates and inflation and those kind of things are putting pressure on private owners that are trying to get real estate projects off the ground, and they're having a hard time making their pro formas pencil out, because that part of the market is a little tough. And so the general feeling that I kind of walked away from was that those firms that had kind of a diversified portfolio of projects that were, both publicly and privately funded, like that's how they typically operate. They've got a good percentage of both types of projects. They were doing okay. Those firms that were heavily, invested in maybe more of the privately funded side of things, there were some of the people or some of the firms that were involved with maybe more of the multifamily housing type projects, right? Those guys were struggling a little bit. But
yeah, was there a positive feeling about interest rates coming down? Or, I mean, because currently everyone's just holding on, it seems like.
Yeah, there was some optimism that those things were going to go in the right directions. some good optimism about the direction that the election that just occurred this last November, and the current administration, and that some of the directions that things are going to go in now was generally positive. Everybody's worried about the impacts that these tariffs are going to have on everything, but generally there was optimism, right, on for the privately funded side of things, kind of turning around and getting better. So
Okay. Well, that's good info. The way that whole meeting is laid out, is it just kind of a round table, or are there speakers? And if there was anybody that chatted, was there anything that was impactful?
Yeah, there's a moderator that sits at the head of the table. This moderator is a guy from the AGC, the local AGC that everybody is familiar with pretty much, and they like him being the moderator. But he sits at the head of the table, and it's just it's not a round table, it's an oval shaped table. It's a big conference table, right? But everybody just sits around this table, and this moderator just fires off questions, and lets everybody who's got either some specific expertise in a certain question or specific knowledge in a certain area, it lets them speak, and then all that gets recorded and it gets published in the Utah Business magazine. So that's kind of the format that's set up. There isn't a formal presentation that's ever given. It's just it's a round table.
So, all right, no real speakers there, but no comments that you felt like that were fairly memorable as they kind of...
Oh, yeah, there was lots of comments that I took note of that were memorable to me. Do you want me to talk about anything specific?
We've got one or two that were on the top of your mind.
There was one of the big things that came up was the state of mental health of the construction worker. So recently, this has kind of become a big deal.
This is not engineer. This
is not engineer. This is in the AEC industry. This is the C side of that industry, right? And it's the superintendents, the carpenters, the laborers, the inline crafts people that are actually swinging the hammers and doing the work, right? Installing the different construction systems and products and making a project come together, right? And so they're under a lot of stress. A lot of that is because time frames have been reduced to just really minimal time frames, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Obviously, time is money, and so a developer or a owner of a project wants that project delivered as quickly as possible, right? Because the longer it takes for construction, the longer it is before that piece of property that's being developed starts generating revenue for that owner. And so it's natural for an owner to want something produced as fast as possible, right? Well, the construction industry has tried to meet those ever-increasing, I'll call them constraints on schedules. They've tried to meet all of those needs of owners, and that pressure is kind of trickling down into the workforce, right? And it's the superintendents and these inline craftspeople that have to produce in these really tight time frames, and it's putting a lot of pressure on them, man. And they're like, it's tough on them mentally, because it means they're working long hours and they're not getting a work-life balance a lot of times, and it's having an effect on their mental health. And construction workers have one of the highest suicide rates that there is, and so the construction industry is looking at that as a serious problem and trying to figure out how to remedy that, how to get people the help that they need, how to recognize when somebody is, not okay. Especially as a manager, if you can know the signs and help recognize when your workers aren't doing well, and then make sure that you have programs and things in place to help get those people the counseling and the help that they need to get through their problems, and see if we can't get this mental health issue, at least, it'll never go to zero, but at least make a positive impact on that. That was a big topic of discussion.
I'm just curious, but how do you realistically do that when your guy is out there swinging a hammer? He has a challenge, so he's got to step away from the job or do this after hours to go take care of his mental health, or after the project's done, which is going to be
Yeah, it's tough because you're right.
you flip this.
You're either replacing that individual as somebody else that can step in while that individual gets help. He's not being a productive person at that point. And so, it's a problem.
The other thing is, a lot of employers offer benefits that are kind of like an employee helpline, or they give them so many counseling sessions for free, etc. So imagine those all kind of.
Yes. And those were all things that were brought up that pretty much all construction companies are offering their employees. I know the one I work for definitely offers that. It's just that construction workers, here's a big surprise, big shocker, spoiler alert. They're not willing to seek help, right? They're going to be tough and just work it out, we're going to push through, and because that's the type of employee that works construction. It's that person that's used to just pulling things up by their bootstraps and jumping in and getting things done, right? They're not the ones that are typically complaining about, how life has dealt them a raw deal, and they're not the ones that are being whiny and complaining about things. They're the ones that get in and get stuff done. And so they're less likely to admit that they're having mental issues or mental health problems. And so it's kind of incumbent upon the manager to help recognize that, and then let these individuals know, hey, it's okay. I can see you're having some problems here, man. Let's get you some help, and try to get them turned around.
I work around a lot of linemen, and I think they have a similar personality. So very, very A-type, take charge and knock it out.
Yeah. And I mean, those are the type of people that you want on your front line, swinging your hammers and installing your equipment and making things happen, but and operating your equipment, right? Those are the people you want to have in those positions. But you push, we're all human, man, and we get pushed too hard, things start snapping.
Yeah, and you have safety issues, or someone gets hurt or killed, and that's not good. So.
Exactly. And it moves into safety issues, which, it's kind of a problem. And so pretty much everybody in construction industry is moving towards offering those type of programs that you're talking about. But they're also trying to make it okay to kind of not be okay, right? And get the help that you need. So
talk about it. Okay.
And plus, it was kind of fun to have some, because there's owners that are in this round table as well, right? Developers and the people that are essentially pushing these project schedules, So it was a little bit of a time to kind of rib those guys, hey, this is your fault. You're making us go too fast, kind of a thing. But
crunch timelines.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just the nature of the business. It's time is money, and owners, and I mean, I think that's not completely off base. They want their projects turned around as quickly as possible so that they can start generating that revenue that they're counting on, but
Makes sense.
we got to kind of strike a balance somehow. I think things need to swing back the other way a little bit, and maybe we strike a little bit more of a balance so our guys aren't breaking down.
Well, so that was one topic. What was another one that was?
Yeah, so market conditions, the labor conditions. So we're still, besides the mental health conditions, one of the things that's contributing to that too is the lack of skilled workforce. Right, we've talked about that a lot.
Feels like that's everywhere.
It's still a problem, and so
everywhere.
Yeah, and so in the workforce, and I'll talk about the state of design as well, and it's a problem there too. But on the front lines, it's a problem that getting skilled workers doing the work, and so the ones that are skilled are being leaned on more and more to do a little bit more, right? Because we don't have enough guys to do a given job, so the guys that you got have to do more. So that's part of these mental health things too. So
and they're not compensated for it, and then they get upset.
Yeah, but there's lots of efforts in the industry to do some reaching out to high schools and I don't know, other trade organizations that will help. I guess the youth coming out of high schools understand that construction is a viable field and a viable option for making a good living, making a decent living. It's not.
Is that for a push for actual skilled labor, or is that push for like engineer in construction?
Both.
Both.
Yeah, it's both. So I'm talking about just the skilled labor, the tradespeople that we need on the job. There's a push there, but there's also a push for more design professionals. And on the design side, there needs to be more mentoring from the older generation so that the younger people coming out of school and starting their careers get more of a practical side of experience. There was a lot of talk at this meeting about how, we, as ownership, we commission a design team to get us a design for, say, like a multifamily housing project, and we commission a design team to get that designed, and we roll it out, and the construction team starts going through the details, and they find out there is a lot of things that are missing, right? A lot of things that are getting overlooked, and it's creating a lot of not only costs for the owner, because as a construction team, you look at that stuff and go, oh, looks like you missed this, you missed that. And when a design team recognizes that and goes, oh, we got to change that design and make it work, that turns into a change order most of the time, right? And that ends up costing the owner money. And so they're trying to create mentorships and different ways of improving, passing on skills from the older generation to the newer generation coming in, so that they can recognize some of the constructability issues that are a problem, right, with these designs that are coming out.
I've noticed more and more that usually looks like more like in-house training. Like, let's record videos of something. Let's look, with a senior person going over something that we could pass on to other employees and make it some sort of learning.
Yeah.
LMS learning system.
And it can take that form. I wish every structural engineer, every architect, every civil engineer actually had to get out in the field, get their bags on, and like go to work and put some of the things in, install some of the things that they end up designing. actually build some of the things that they end up designing so that they have that practical side of their experience.
Then when they're reviewing drawings, they know, hey,
Yeah.
I worked on that stuff.
Well, even as simple as just, you know what? I didn't get this element of the structure dimensioned. I mean, it's as simple as things like that, right? Like, oh, I missed that, because they'd be thinking in the constructor's point of view, which is where things are produced, right? That's where the rubber hits the road. Your designs are great on paper, right? But they mean nothing until they're actually being executed out in the field. And if a designer doesn't understand the processes very well, then you can leave, add, change whatever you want on paper, but sometimes that has a huge impact on constructability and what happens in the field. And so it would just give design teams in general a lot better recognition of those constructability issues. I wish that could happen. I don't think it'll ever get to those kind of levels, but the seasoned designers that have done it for quite a few years, they do start getting a feel for how things are constructed in the field after they've done it for a few years. There just needs to be a better mechanism to pass all of that along to the up and comers. Yeah,
totally agree with that. I work in the transmission world and utility world, and I can't tell you, there's so many times I review a drawing or something, and someone's designed a new steel pole that has a 6-7 foot foundation on it, and they're putting it in the exact same spot as an existing structure, and it's like, how are they going to build that?
yeah,
You got to move it.
that's right. Yeah, you can put whatever you want on paper, but man, when it comes to putting it in place in real life, it can be a whole different deal.
Good pointer. Man, okay, so that's another interesting topic. Any other ones that stood out?
Everybody's got AI on the mind, right? Like how are we implementing AI in our industry? That was a topic of discussion. And
What are you seeing?
there's a lot of things going on with AI. I think a lot of most of the workflow in the AEC industry is affected by AI in some way, right? So the big thing now, though, is trying to streamline workflows and improve processes with AI. And it hasn't been fully, I don't know, figured out, I guess is the right way to put that. Everybody wants to use AI, and it's kind of the buzzword right nowadays. And if it's really still kind of it's, I don't know if elusive is the right word, but it's still a challenge to determine how that can be best implemented to improve processes. Because what happens is, as a BIM model, for example, is generated from a design team, it has to get from their computer into either a fabricator that's fabricating the parts and pieces of the structure that's designed, and the construction, the general contractor, so that all the parts and pieces can be fabricated, and then all those parts and pieces have to be coordinated with the general sequence of the project. And so there's scheduling, right? There's deliveries, there's all these things that need to be coordinated. And so they're trying to get, I don't know, just all of that coordinated a lot better using AI tech to get that, fully implemented. And it's in development, right? Nobody kind of knows
how we're using it, and that I'm seeing where trends are going anyway.
Yeah.
Where I see AI being used is in a lot of inspection of infrastructure. So we're always inspecting transmission lines, distribution lines, looking for conditions on poles that would immediately need to be fixed, or they need to be cataloged. And so every utility goes through this, but they have some sort of maintenance programming.
Mm-hmm.
Well, companies are offering this, and it's a growing industry where they're flying these lines and they're training models on recognizing what an issue is, so it can quickly identify conditions. And I've seen the same thing in inspections with bridges or concrete inspection. You're training AI on what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable, so that some stuff can be automated
Right.
for your inspection program.
Yeah, they talk about there's the ability to use safety AI algorithms too that have been packaged, in different software package where you can fly a drone on over a job site, and it'll identify all the safety issues that you're having on that job site.
It's getting crazy, man. I don't know where it's all headed, but
yeah, so it's all it's all in development, right? There's all this promise of all these of bettering all of these workflows, like we've talked about. And I've seen that too, where they're trying to get them into the inspection process. I do a lot of PT slabs, post-tension concrete slabs, and they want to just fly these things because they're usually about 10,000 square foot in area, and there's just a ton of bar and PT in these things, and walking through it, inspecting everything, making sure it's all in the right spot. I mean, it takes some time, but they're like, man, what if we could just fly a drone above the pour and then have it make some comparisons to the design drawings and see if everything's in the right place, at least call out the issues that it sees. And so that's something that's in the works as well. And so, but despite all of that, nobody wants to get the human element out of the loop. And I agree with that. I don't think that's a good idea. If they're using AI to help identify problems, where then a human can get in the loop and determine whether the problem that was identified is legit or not,
still verify.
I think that's a great idea, right? So just so it can save time in those workflows like that. But yeah, so AI is, it's here, and based on what I heard, everybody's planning on implementing that. It's just kind of oh my gosh, there's all this stuff going on, and where's it going to settle? Is kind of the attitude with everybody. But
okay, another interesting topic.
Yeah,
one more we could hit before we close it out.
Yeah, let's talk about a little more about the design issues. There was, there's always a group of design professionals that participate in this, architects, structural engineers, civil engineers. One of the things that came up that was memorable to me was some of the changes in ACI 31819 and having to do with the lateral systems for concrete shear walls in particular. They're a lot more difficult to build now, given some of the seismic requirements that are being imposed on the design industry. And while the codes are there for, to ensure public safety in design, a lot of the designers and structural engineers feel like the code is getting way too conservative in a lot of ways, way too prescriptive, I guess is the way I'll put it. And there's some things that need to be adjusted. And you can get into performance-based design that gets away from the code prescriptive design, but some of the engineers, at least in my market, feel like they're getting handcuffed a little bit.
We engineering anymore, or just throwing it through the code?
No, I mean, they're still engineering. It's just some of the restrictions that the code is putting in the latest additions it's costing projects a lot more money to construct. And when a design is as constructors, we get used to building things a certain way and knowing how much they cost, right? And so when the code throws a curveball in there and says, no, now we have to have, like in this case, all shear walls, the first lift of the rebar, you can't lap it at mid height anymore. You have to take it and you can't lap it at the dowels coming out of the footings. You have to take that bar and it has to be continuous all the way up to level 2 at the mid lap splice at level 2. That costs more money to do because now you've got this big, huge, tall section of rebar that you have to guy off and brace and stuff while you're building your footings down below. And it's not practical. It doesn't work very well. And so what happens is, okay, we can't take the rebar up full height, so we're going to use couplers now, right? They're all supposed to develop 125% of the strength of the bar, and so they turn out to be, usually threaded couplers, and they're expensive. I mean, you're dropping $250, $300 a pop for those things, and then if you imagine how much vertical steel is in a shear wall, it's a lot of money, And so when that stuff happens in the design, usually the structural engineer takes some heat from the contractor saying, yo, hey, what happened here? Why do we have to do this? This is costing a lot more money. We don't want to do this, So they feel some pressure to make their designs efficient, but the code is saying, nope, this is the way it's got to be. And they kind of take some heat for that kind of stuff. And so ACI 31819 had some provisions that came up in our discussion that they're dealing with, that they've got some pushback. So, yeah, stuff like that.
Well, man, this has been insightful. I'm sure there were more topics that you guys talked about, but I guess high level, do you have just like a one-liner for what maybe some of the other subjects were?
Well, yeah, it's always good for me to see like the passion and the love that people have for the industry that they're in, right? And obviously in the concern and that they have for the people in that industry, because it's like every industry, it's a people-driven industry, and you got to make sure that your people that work for you, and the people that you serve are being taken care of. And so it's always good to me. It's heartening, right, to see that everybody in that room shares the same kind of goals, so that's kind of cool to see. And it's cool to get all together with your peers, your fellow AEC professionals, and just understand that, hey, everybody's going through the same thing here, and so in that regard, it's really heartening. I kind of like the meeting just for that,
Yeah, that's cool. Rubbing shoulders with peers and getting an update.
But again, Isaac, it's just the design industry and the construction industry. They're just an essential part of our nation and the economy and our communities. And it's such an important part of everything that we do. And it's just, it's kind of cool to be a part of all of that. So as a civil engineer, it's cool to see how you fit in all of that, in that mechanism, right? That designs and builds these projects and the infrastructure and everything that we see around us, the built environment.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool to see your place in all of that. So
there is a lot of self-fulfillment in this industry, being a civil engineer and working on stuff that humanity needs and often gets overlooked, but
that's right.
They know when it's not there. So anyway, cool. Well, thanks for sharing your insights. This was super informative, and it's always fun to hear like kind of the industry trends and what's going on out there in the world. So thanks for coming on and sharing your thoughts.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay. We will talk to you later and bring you on maybe in the future.
Okay. See ya.
See ya.